Okay, so this right here is what I'm taking apart. This line here came off very, very easily. So there's a little lip right here that slides around this little tiny, I don't know, lip. This just fits right on here with just a little bit of force. You'll have to push the throttle body to lift this up to give it some slack so that you can pull it off. But it'll just fit its way right back on. Now I think this just comes off with like a screwdriver if you pry it hard enough. I mean, I don't really want to ruin it, so. But to my knowledge, the car is no good right now anyway if this doesn't fix it. So, okay, just pops off with a screwdriver. So what I'm gonna do actually for this is get a pair of wire cutters, and I'll show you why. So this back cable closest to the come on, man. This back cable here closest to the I don't know. There we go. Now I got it. So the back cable here closest to the throttle plate, it's held on at the top here and also at the bottom here. There's like a little lip around it, and I'm going to use these wire cutters because they're really thin. There's not a wire here that you can cut. It's thick metal. But they're really thin and they'll fit in here, and I will be able to pry it off with even pressure on either side. So that worked out very well. That's off. So now I have to take this apart and figure out why the spring isn't working, which again is just a 10mm socket. I only put on 2 nuts here just to hold it in place. There's normally 4 bolts, and there's normally a gasket under here. I didn't put it on just because I was taking it right off. I just took a look at my own Jeep, and it was having a similar issue after I took apart the throttle. I took it apart the same way as I took apart this one, and it was having basically the same issue. So if this doesn't solve the problem, then that's just the biggest coincidence I've ever experienced in my life. So my mechanic who fixed mine had told me that the spring on the throttle was attached incorrectly, and he also had told me that once you take this apart, there's a shaft in here that holds the throttle plate. Once you take this apart, the throttle position sensor is no longer where it is supposed to be. So here's the sensor right here, throttle position sensor, and there is a shaft in here, right here, that connects into this sensor. And when you hit the throttle, it's moving. But here, it's now been shorted. It's ruined now because it's not holding the proper placement as it does. A new one is set the way that it needs to be. So I'm only going to put this on once I have this together. Because if I put this on before this is properly assembled, then it's not going to be in the right placement. So another problem that I was having, so about the spring, this I'm just going to consider to be the top of the spring. So the top of the spring is where it needs to be. This spring right here. This is where it needs to be. The bottom of the spring is supposed to be attached into this little notch here. Unfortunately, it's up here instead of down in here. So I have to figure out how to move it there. Probably use some pliers or something. In any case, I will do that, and I will let you know how I did it when I'm done. I don't know how long it's going to take me, and I don't want to leave my camera on for however long that's going to take. Okay, that took me about 7 minutes. So what I did, so the spring is now seated where it needs to be. I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but where's that little flathead I had? So here's the spring right here. If you follow the end of the flathead, it goes into this lip here where it belongs. So now that's where it should be. And as you see, the throttle now has tension on it. And before it was just free. I could move it around without any pressure, and it would sit where it was when I left it. But now it's going back to where it needs to be. And now that's behaving the way it needs to. So that's good, and that's right. And my mechanic charged me $350 to fix my throttle. And this took me 10 minutes. So my mechanic is no longer going to be my mechanic. Yeah, so that's done. So what I did was I keyed a little line right here on the throttle just to show myself which part of this throttle lines up with this notch right here in the throttle body itself, the notch that is right here. So this little key helped me indicate where to pull the spring, and I just pulled it a little bit further back. The spring doesn't have that much tension on it, so it was very easy to pull and manipulate. So I pulled it back a little bit further than I had indicated myself, and I just kind of held it where it was while I put the shaft back into place. So when I did it, I took it apart again and pulled the shaft out, so I had more room to work with, and then I put it right back into place where it needs to be. Now what I'm going to do is take off this sensor. It should be two T20 bits right here, but we lost one, so I made a Phillips head work. I had to cut it to length, whatever. So I made a Phillips head work, but you should have two there, and there's probably a little gasket, a little rubber seal in there to, keep any unnecessary air from getting in there and getting out of there. Now, assuming that this is set before they ship it as usable, I am just going to put it on the way that it should go, and that is, I guess, right? I don't know. We'll see, I guess. The only way I'll know is when it's wrong or right. So I'm just going to hope that this is the problem, and if not, I will swap out the original sensor and see if this was, Other than that, I don't know. I have no idea what could possibly be the problem. So I'm going to put this back, get the gasket, put it back, put all the lines back, plug it back in, and it's probably going to have to charge for, I don't know, 6 more hours. So I'll probably be able to start it by the end of the day. I'll try starting it now, but who knows. Okay, so I got that back on with the gaskets and stuff, but this stuff should just push back into place. Like I said, you might have to pull the cable back a little bit to get it to seat where it has to, and then just push it. That's on. This one you just push on, and now this is now responding the way that it seems like it has to, so that's good. I'm going to plug everything back in. I'm just going to keep this old sensor, just in case that it for some reason still does work, and if that one's bad, I'll put this one back on, because they don't look, they look the same. They're the same sensor. It fit and everything, but this one just looks like a better sensor. The one I got looks kind of cheap. Okay, so the Jeep is put back together. I just tried to start it. Obviously it hasn't been charging long enough, so it just clicked. So I will turn the camera back on in the next couple of hours, but that's basically it. I'm done with the work part of it. So okay, this thing has been charging for about 3 hours now, and I am going to see if I can get it to start. This is literally how dark my garage gets at night. I have, if anyone knows anything about cameras or photos or anything, I have my ISO on 800. My f-stop is at 60 and my aperture is at 3.5. So that should be letting in a lot of light, but apparently this camera just doesn't understand. But anyway, the Jeep, let me just put it this way. My girlfriend and I found a car for her, and I think that that's going to be the solution to this problem, because I don't think that it pays to keep throwing more money into the car. I've got two lights. The lights are 6 feet away from me. They're hurting my eye if I stare at it. Anyway, the Jeep is donezo. As of right now, I don't think I'm going to do anything with it. I'm not going to keep it. My battery is seconds from dying, so that's going to be it. I don't know what else to do with it, but I appreciate you guys sticking around and watching, and I'll see you next week.